Hi, good night, guys. This is a quick video on the branchial arches. I just want you to memorize these numbers: 5, 7, 9, 10S, 10R. Just keep those in your mind for this time. So, as you know, the branchial arches that we have we develop from in the human being there's 5 of them. However, in total there should be about 8, but we lack 3. So the 3 that we lack will be 5, 7, and 8. In fish, you would see those, but we don't have them. So cranial nerve 5 innervates the first one, and that is innervated by the its arterial supplies from the maxillary as well as the external carotid. Its innervation, as I mentioned, is cranial nerve 5. That's what I told you to remember: 5, 7, 9, 10S, and 10R. What develops from the first branchial arch? Just remember the anterior belly of the digastric, as well as the muscles of mastication, the tensor veli palatini, as well as the tensor tympani, and the mylohyoid. Right? I want to make sure I tell you the right things. Yes, I'm correct. Okay? Muscles of mastication, which would include the temporalis, the masseter, and the medial lateral pterygoid, and it's innervated by V3, which is the third branch of the mandibular nerve. As you know, the mandibular nerve has the ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular nerve, and you also have to know where the mandibular nerve comes up, which is from the foramen ovale, and you also have to know the contents of the foramen ovale, which should be the mandibular nerve, accessory meningeal, lesser petrosal, and emersonary vein. And everybody knows the acronym from medical school, which was MALE. Also, you have to know the skeletal components, which would be I remember it via MIMS, or three. It has 3 M's and an I. I don't know why I remember it like that, but it makes it just easier. So it's the malleus, the incus, the mandible, and the last thing is the maxilla. So maxilla, mandible, malleus, and incus. Okay, so that's the first part: maxilla, mandible, malleus, and incus. Okay, the second part is second branchial arch is innervated by cranial nerve 7. So remember 5, 7, 9, 10S, 10R. So second branchial arch is cranial nerve 7. As you already know, cranial nerve 7 innervates all of the muscles of the face, but it goes a bit further. It also innervates the posterior digastric. I'll never forget this, because in my exam, there was a time in the exam when I was actually asked about this, and I got the two mixed up, the posterior digastric and the anterior digastric. I was able to identify them because remember, the posterior digastric and the anterior digastric actually form a triangle right here at the base of the neck. We won't go into that in details right now. So remember, in the first part, in the first branchial arch, as I said, the skeletal components were the maxilla, the mandible, and the malleus and the incus. So the second branchial arch actually derives its arterial supply from the stapedial artery, and its skeletal component is basically the final component of that continuation of bones, which should be the stapedius, right? So I want you to remember these 3 things for the second part, which should be the stapedius, the stylogloss or the styloid, as well as the lesser cornu of the hyoid bone. And as I mentioned, it innervates the muscles of facial expression, as well as the posterior belly of the digastric, as well as the platysma and the stapedius. Because remember, during your examination of the facial muscles, you still have to do this to raise the platysma underneath here, which is cranial nerve 5. So the muscles of facial expression, the stapedius, the platysma, and the posterior belly of the digastric. Now, you must remember in the examination, in anatomy, what is interesting is that if you have a lesser cornu, you have a greater cornu. And the good thing about the branchial arches is that it's progressive, so you can already work out what is the skeletal component of the third part of the third branchial arch, which should be the greater cornu. See how interesting that is? So it goes from lesser cornu from the second branchial arch to the greater cornu. So remember lesser cornu, styloid, as well as the stapedius, and then it goes now to the greater cornu. Okay. What I found very interesting about this, there's a table in this book. I hope you'll have the book, and I'm not teaching it off the top of my head. Actually, I'm just trying to show you the associations with how I remember it, and I remember it via progression and acronyms. You understand? So the stapes, styloid, and the lesser cornu of the hyoid. So I kept saying stapedius, but it's the stapes, styloid, and lesser cornu of the hyoid. The fourth one, because remember it's the first, second, third, fourth, and sixth. And remember I told you to remember 5, 7, 9, 10S, and 10R. And I'll tell you why 10S and 10R, which I think you know already. So the fourth branchial arch is innervated by 10S, or the superior laryngeal nerve. And as you already know, the superior laryngeal nerve innervates the cricothyroid. So you already have that there done. If they ask in examination, where is the cricothyroid derived from? And you already know it's derived from the fourth branchial arch, which, like I said, that association helps you. So then you can already work out that since it's 10S and 10R, that the sixth branchial arch, right, produces all of the muscles of the larynx except the cricothyroid. See? So the innervation is 10S for branchial arch 4 and 10R for branchial arch 6. Okay? The blood supply is kind of tricky though, because it took me a little while to remember this. So for the branchial arch 4, on the right is the subclavian, on the left is the aortic arch. But for branchial arch 6, it's actually the pulmonary arteries. The skeletal component of the branchial arch 4 is the, I remember it via I have to touch my neck, I don't know why I do it, but it's the epiglottis as well as the, epiglottis as well as the thyroid cartilage. I remember to just touch on it. So epiglottis as well as the thyroid cartilage. Okay. For the branchial arch 6 is the thyroid cartilage and the arytenoids. And as I mentioned before, the branchial arch 4 innervates the cricothyroid as well as all of the muscles of the larynx, of the soft palate. What am I saying? Of the soft palate, sorry. Do you know the muscles of the soft palate? There are 5 of them. Tensor veli palatini, levator veli palatini, palatoglossus, palatopharyngeus, and the musculus uvulae. So those 5 things you have to know. Tensor veli palatini, levator veli palatini, palatoglossus, palatopharyngeus, as well as the musculus uvulae. Okay? For the cranial nerve 6th cranial nerve 10R, 10R is the innervation of the 6th branchial arch, and it innervates all of the muscles of the larynx except the cricothyroid. Okay, so I'm not too certain if I will go into depth into the muscles of the larynx. I'll do one more video for that. If you want that video, I will do that video, as well as the branches of the maxillary artery. But for now, I just want you to remember 5, 7, 9, 10S, and 10R. That's how. If you keep that in your mind in the examination, and you know that there's the branchial arches go 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and you know the order 5, 7, 9, 10S, and 10R, you're set for the examination. And then you just have to know the associations. So if I ask you quick off the bat now, what's the innervation of branchial arch 2? You just go 5, 7. Okay, so cranial nerve 7. So then you know the muscles of facial expression, and you go to platysma as well as the the stapedius, and the posterior belly of the digastric. And the interesting about the posterior belly of the digastric is that it's derived from the second branchial arch. So that means that the first branchial arch gave rise to the anterior belly of the digastric. But you also know the anterior belly of the digastric is derived from the first branchial arch as well as the muscles of mastication. Okay? So I also noticed something interesting too in this chart. So remember I told you that the fourth branchial arch innervates all of the muscles of the soft palate. But did you remember that the first branchial arch innervates the tensor veli palatini? So that tells us that the first branchial arch innervates one muscle of the soft palate that the fourth branchial arch does not. Okay? So the muscles that I told you, the tensor veli palatini, the levator veli palatini, as well as the palatoglossus palatus and this palatopharyngeus, as well as the musculus uvulae, the muscles are all innervated by cranial nerve 10S, however, except the muscles of the tensor veli palatini, which is innervated by cranial nerve 5. I hope you like this video. If I made any mistakes, feel free to tell me. I don't mind. I like having constructive criticism. Okay? So I hope this helps. Thanks, guys.